What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the FF Ballbusters podcast. Thank you for joining us. My name is Eric. That's my co host, Will. And today we are going to be getting into some buy sells at the running back position in Dynasty. Running back position is definitely an interesting one, so I'm very excited to get into it. But real quickly, before we do, Will, do you have anything to say to the people?
Oh yeah, you guys have been doing great supporting the channel. We've got over 800 subscribers now, so thank you guys so much for all the support. Hopefully keep that continued. So if you're new to this video, you haven't hit that subscribe button, hit the subscribe button, hit that notification bell. That way you know when we drop all of our newest videos. And also hit that like button. It's absolutely free, best way to get our stuff out there in the YouTube algorithm. So with that being said, I think we can go ahead and get into it.
Absolutely. So just to kind of introduce the platform that we're going to be using today, we are going to keep trade cut, which we've used a bunch so far on this channel. So if you've been with us, you already know what the deal is. But it's kind of a community-based ranking system for Dynasty, for the people, by the people. When you come onto the site, you are asked to keep trade cut 3 different players, and they at this point have over 12 million data points to go off of. So this isn't the end all be all by any means. Rankings can differ, and people have different opinions, but I think that this is a good way to gauge the community value and the market value of these running backs. And so we're going to be going through the list, looking at some guys that we think might be overvalued, undervalued, and whether you should buy or sell. So Will, I'll throw to you for the first running back. Who do you want to talk about first?
So just the first running back that I have on my list, first person I kind of wanted to talk about, we're going to have to scroll down just a little bit. I wanted to talk about Brian Robinson from the Washington Commanders. He's somebody that we talked about a good bit in the offseason, just as someone who would be a good value going into the season. So, of course, for like redraft purposes, not so much for Dynasty, because Dynasty's kind of a weird position for Brian Robinson. He's got draft capital because he was drafted in the second round, but it also kind of feels like he's only in the position to start because they have nobody better really to put in there over him. You know what I mean? But I feel like that situation could very easily change in the future. So his situation's a little bit shakier, in comparison to other running backs. But so far this season, he's having a really good season. So what I'm here, I guess, to ask is there a window right now to probably even like sell a guy like Brian Robinson? Since he's had a good season, but he hasn't really had the volume to go along with it, would you try to hold him? Or would you try to sell him for the value that he is worth, at least at this point? Or do you even feel like there's anything good you could get out of him at this point?
I definitely think that there's value to be had there. Also, I want to go back real quickly. I'm pretty sure he was a third round pick. I think he was the 98th overall pick in the 2022 draft. Just wanted to clarify.
Okay.
But in terms of his Dynasty value, I mean, what is he on the season right now? I think he's, in terms of redraft, he's sitting at RB12, so he's a borderline RB1, putting up 13 points per game in half PPR. He's absolutely somebody that I think a contender would be into. And Antonio Gibson at this point doesn't seem like the competition that we once thought he was. We've seen Chris Rodriguez get a couple opportunities, but he's not eating into the workload by any means. So I don't know that I'm like in a rush one way or the other. Obviously, if you are not a contending team, if you're a rebuilder, you're looking to get him off your roster, but I would hope that you would have done that already. As a contender, I think I'm willing to just hold, because you make a good point. Like, he's probably not going to get you enough return where it would be warranted to get him off your team for the production that you're getting for him now.
But he's definitely not a person that you're going to go and buy either at the same time. Because I noticed we talked about selling there. We never talked about buying at any point.
Yeah. So that kind of gets into the strategy of the running back position in Dynasty as well, whether you want to treat it as more of a long-term investment or the way that I kind of look at it is, if you're contending, I'm treating running backs basically like redraft. And because he's producing, I'll hold. But for long-term value, you made a good point. Like, I don't think he has amazing job security by any means. I don't think he's going to be sticking around for years and years to come.
Yeah, it's kind of the point I was making there. I feel like if there's any window to try to sell him right now and to get that value out of him, I feel like it is kind of right now to do that, at least.
Yeah. No, I think I would agree with that. That makes sense to me.
Okay.
Um, and then for me, we can go back up to the top of the list. A lot of the names that I have are going to be up at the top. Um, the first one that I wanted to mention is going to be Jonathan Taylor. So he goes out with this thumb injury, and I think that makes him a screaming buy for non-contending teams. He was finally rounding back into form prior to having that thumb injury. He had his best game of the season, going 15 for 91 and 2 against Tampa, who's a top 5 run defense. But if you want to buy him, you have to do it like right now because he's unlikely to go on IR, is all of the reports that we've heard. So we're talking 2 to 3 weeks missed, which means he could be back for like semis and potentially the championship week of your fantasy playoffs. And so if you wait a week, if you don't get it done immediately, contending teams I feel like are going to be more likely to hold, less likely to give him up with 1 week of him already in the books not being active. But what's your take on Jonathan Taylor? And do you think situation could change a little bit? Anthony Richardson coming back, do you think it's worth trying to invest in him now?
I think it is. Like you said, he's come back to form. Like he's been playing really, really well as of late, shown a lot of signs of the older Jonathan Taylor. It's also good to see that he did get the contract he was looking for as well. So job security's there. The him playing is there. So Jonathan Taylor, I feel like you said, this is the point where his value is probably going to be the lowest going forward, unless something else is to happen again, God forbid, but we're not here to predict injuries. So to say that right now his value is the lowest that you can probably get him for the foreseeable future, I'd say that's a completely accurate take. I like that.
Yeah, and it'll probably be difficult. It's a difficult sell. It's a situation where I think he would have to be on a team that is contending, but also not deep enough at running back to fill in for him. So this isn't going to be, like a smash spot. You can buy him in every league. But if you're in a situation like that, I think this is a good spot to take advantage. And I should have mentioned at the top of the video, but if you guys have any specific trade questions, or if you're wondering, what is a good price for Jonathan Taylor, we're not necessarily going to try to go into specifics in the video just because talking about what players are around the same value or what picks is going to take too long. But let us know in the comments below. Leave a comment with any trade proposals, any ideas you have, and we'll be sure to answer you. So that's my first guy on the list. Who's going to be your next guy up here to talk about?
My next guy to talk about is somebody we talked about a little bit in the offseason that we haven't really been too confident in ourselves, but he's been performing decently in fantasy lately. Not great, but he's had some good spotty performances. It's Rachaad White for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He's somebody I wanted to talk about as a sell as well, somebody to get off your team. So we're kind of going to keep the negative Rachaad White speak on the channel at the moment. But I do feel like the reason why he is, performing as well as he is because he's gotten a lot of receiving work. He has not been a good running back by any means. He's averaging like 3 yards per carry. But in terms of receptions, I think Christian McCaffrey so far on the season has 45 receptions. Rachaad White has 43 on the season. And just taking a look at the value of these, players right here, it confuses me that Rachaad White is up here and they've got Tony Pollard underneath of him, which I guess is maybe some sort of like age bias or something like that, because Tony Pollard has 42 receptions on the season. And honestly, I would much rather have Tony Pollard on my team as it stands right now than a Rachaad White. But in terms of, I guess, if you're trying to contend right now and you need somebody who's out there getting points for you right now, Rachaad White is a not bad player to have on your team. He's going to put out some good performances for you here and there. I just don't know how sustainable that is going down the road. I don't even really know how long this guy's going to be a football player because by everything that I've seen, he's not really that good. And I feel like he is just, one good player entering the room away from not having this job. I mean, for Christ's sakes, we were talking about Sean Tucker possibly taking, touches away from Rachaad White this year, an undrafted prospect. So, yeah, I think Rachaad White, this is the time to try to get rid of him. And, the window, it's here, I guess. I don't know how much you're going to get for Rachaad White, but I feel like there is value to be found from other players in your league for Rachaad White.
No, I think you're absolutely right. I think there's definitely value to be found. And this is where that idea that I talked about and how you value the running back position in Dynasty gets put to the test. Because if we're talking redraft value, he is, I think, like just outside the RB1 rankings. I think he's the RB14 in half PPR. And if you're in PPR scoring, he's going to be even higher than that. But yeah, just in terms of like talent and what I think of him as a football player, like you mentioned, he's not good. Like in his rookie year, 2022, he was basically the least efficient running back in the NFL and one of the worst in terms of his effectiveness running the ball, not just behind the line of or I'm sorry, in between the tackles, but also outside the tackles. He still wasn't efficient in either of those, and he was averaging 3.7 yards a carry. This year, it's even worse at 3.6. So we're not seeing, an improvement. We're not seeing him get better. This last week against Indianapolis was his first week on the entire season where he was above 4 yards per carry. So it's just been bleak. Like, we're not even really seeing flashes that often. But in redrafts, like, he's still getting it done. So there's definitely going to be a market for him. And I think late on in the season, if you're kind of a middling team, if you don't see yourself as a true contender, I think this is definitely the time to get rid of him if you're kind of stuck in that position. Because I don't think he's going to push you over the top and make you, a championship team. But I think that he could be valued as such for somebody who's, contending a little bit better than you. And to your point, I don't think his value is going to increase later on into his career. So, yeah, this is probably a good time to ship him off.
Absolutely. Who else do you have next on your list?
In conjunction with the Jonathan Taylor talk, I also wanted to talk about Zack Moss. We got to scroll down quite a bit. I think he's down at RB 45. It also just kind of depends on when you update the site. So what is he for you?
48 on here.
48? Okay.
Yeah, I got to actually
even
move
better.
The screen up some. Damn, there you go.
But yeah, even better. I'm all in on Zack Moss on contending teams. Not only is he going to fill in for Taylor while he's hurt in this next 2 to 3 weeks, but I think he's proven enough that he deserves an opportunity as a team's lead back heading into the offseason when he's going to be an unrestricted free agent. Like, I think he is going to be signed somewhere else or even come back and, fill in those spots, the spot starts for Jonathan Taylor. I think you can definitely consider him a win now buy, but, with what I just said, like, he can also have value going forward. To kind of compare JT versus Zack Moss to give you an idea of how effective he really has been, JT, since his return, has been putting up 13.3 points per game. And even if you exclude the first 2 weeks when he came back and was getting single-digit carries, he's averaging 16 points per game, whereas Zack Moss is at 12.8 on the season and 19.3 if you only include the weeks through that week 6 where JT wasn't the full workhorse. So he's actually been outproducing JT to this point. On the flip side, if you're on a rebuilder, now is definitely the time to sell. This is probably the highest his value is going to be. But on a contender, I think he's a fantastic buy, and you can get him for fairly cheap at this point.
Yeah, it feels like a weird sort of late career resurgence. Not even late career, because Zack Moss hasn't been in the league for that long. But it just feels like it's been a good renaissance for Zack Moss this year. Like you said, he's proven a lot that he can be capable, and he's done it with, this Colts team, which I wouldn't really consider to be a very good team. So he has proven that, he's at least got some talent himself, and I like that a lot. So like Eric said, if you're on a contender, Zack Moss, definitely someone you probably want to have on your team because he is going to put up points. If you're on somebody that's rebuilding or a middling team, the value is there. Go get it while it's hot because who knows how long it's going to be there for sure. I like that, though. I do like that a lot.
Absolutely. All right, I dig it. Who is going to be next up on your list?
So, someone I wanted us to have a conversation about. This isn't quite saying I think he's a buy right now, to be honest with you. But I want to see what you think about it as well. It's Tyjae Spears for Tennessee.
Okay.
So I'm not saying like Derrick Henry's out the door or anything like that, but he has shown that they are giving him some workload when Derrick Henry is also in the game as well. So they've both been getting sort of this tandem 1-2 punch sort of workload throughout the season. Derrick Henry's been getting the lion's share, though, for sure. But we've seen signs of that sort of tailing off. We've even seen like games where they're sort of 50-50, but Derrick Henry just happened to be the one to get like the goal line work, stuff like that. We've also seen games where Tyjae Spears has outperformed Derrick Henry as well as a rookie. So I think going forward, that shows good signs of volume for at least Tyjae Spears going forward. Now, whether Derrick Henry is going to be in the building or not, I have no idea. I feel like Derrick Henry's on the trade block every single year, and somehow he always stays in Tennessee. So Derrick Henry could just be on this team till he retires, and who knows when the fall off's going to be. Hasn't quite happened yet, but we've seen signs of it. But I am optimistic about Tyjae Spears going forward and being able to handle at least, the extended workloads. I feel like he's going to keep getting as time goes along. So I like Tyjae Spears. I feel like he's not a name that people talk about a whole lot, so there is a window to buy him right now.
Yeah, I think I agree with you. This is not something that I had really considered prior to you mentioning it, but now that I think about it, he's probably one of the few examples of a running back that I'd actually buy on a rebuilder. I don't know that he's going to provide you with enough value on a contender, at least immediately, for it to be difference making this year. Although I wouldn't mind buying him for future value also. But yeah, on a rebuilder, especially with the team being as bad as it is right now, we've seen the production kind of tail off a little bit. He's shown flashes, like you said, where he's had some production spikes. I think he had 15 points in week 5 versus Indianapolis. He's had a couple double-digit performances. But as of late, we're talking 4.2, 8, 3.6, 1.2. So he's not going to be, pushing up your max points for. He's not going to affect your draft position. And I think, like you mentioned, Derrick Henry at this point, probably not coming back next year. I don't... It's hard to predict because, like you said, we've been saying this for a lot of years in a row, but I think it's finally up to that point. And so if he is the RB1, or at least, kind of the 1A in a committee, he's proven that he can absolutely handle that workload and produce at a high level. So I like that a lot.
Hell yeah.
All right. And then the last one that's going to be on my list, we're going to go back up to the top. And this is more so, it's not a hard sell. It's a discussion to be had, and I think it's worth kind of bringing up the potential of this being a sell, and I want to get your opinion on it as well. But I'm talking about Breece Hall here. So far this season, he is the RB22 in points per game. Obviously, Aaron Rodgers tore the Achilles. His health is in question. His kind of career timeline is in question. We don't know what he's going to do going forward. It sounds like he's probably going to return for next year, which would make sense. But beyond that, we really don't have any idea. With this team as a whole, like, their defense is too good for them to lose enough games to draft like a top high-end quarterback prospect, which is really the missing piece for this team and the missing piece for Breece Hall's kind of being unlocked as a top-tier running back. Like, if we're looking at running backs through a redraft lens on contenders, like we've been talking about, I'm not sure that he deserves to be valued quite as high as he is right now. But obviously, they are just that one piece away. It just happens to be the hardest piece to acquire in the NFL, a good starting quarterback. Do you think that Breece Hall deserves to be ranked this high, considering, like, a lot of his prime might get wasted?
Breece Hall is a player I've been struggling with for months. I've gone from saying, Breece Hall is not a top 10 running back in Dynasty just off of situation alone. And I've gone back to saying, hey, I'm
top 10?
Hey, I'm just saying just off of situation and the stuff that's going on. Because, like, I see the potential, I see the prospect, I see all of that. But I have not seen it on paper yet. So this is like, Breece Hall is like the Kyle Pitts of running backs for me right now. You know what I mean? And I need to see more out of it before I'm really, really going to believe in it. Now, Kyle Pitts hasn't dropped out of that top 10, and Breece Hall is not going to drop out of that top 10 for me either. You know what I mean? But I do need to see something. I need to see him, for him to be up here at the RB4. I kind of need to see something because at this point, they didn't, Aaron Rodgers is there. He played like 3 snaps and whatever it was, whatever it is that happened to Aaron Rodgers happened. But we've seen Breece Hall perform both with bad quarterbacks, and we've seen him not perform with bad quarterbacks. So I don't know what to make out of that. I don't know if he is quite situation proof because we haven't seen it, but also we need to see him come back fully healthy as well. So it's tough to say that, like, this Breece Hall we've seen this year is the full Breece Hall even that we're going to get going forward. But in terms of, like, if you're on a contender and is Breece Hall a sell, personally, I would probably do it if I needed, like, the value somewhere else. If I needed to find value somewhere else on my team and I have a guy who's the RB4 who's not performing like the RB4 that I can get that kind of value for, I would probably try to sell him, to be honest.
Yeah. So this is kind of the way that I was thinking about it. Is like, I don't even necessarily think that he deserves to be dropped down in the rankings that much. Like, you could maybe argue Travis Etienne, Taylor with the injury, probably not. HN, depending on how much you believe in his return and if he's going to look the same, whatever. But in terms of what you would do in a potential trade situation, like, I'm not looking to go 1-for-1 with any of these guys around him. Like, I'm not going to trade Breece Hall for ETN straight up. I just don't know that makes too much of a difference to me. But if you can find somebody that values Breece Hall as this top 5 dynasty running back, as this, potential workhorse that once he gets a quarterback, he's going to be at the top of the list, I think you should try to go for the top. Like, you can do a Bijan or Christian McCaffrey trade. You just add a little bit on top. So, like, Breece plus a second for CMC. A couple examples, like maybe Breece and a late first and a third for Bijan, or like Breece and 2 seconds for Bijan, something like that. If you can get the cream of the crop for Bijan plus a little bit extra, that's kind of what I'm targeting.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. I think that's a great strategy to go for. Like you said, I'm not looking to trade down from Breece Hall because I do believe in the potential of Breece Hall. And we've seen it. We've seen games where he's been amazing. But, and like you said, if you can reach up with the Breece Hall, I would definitely try to look into that and see if I can make that happen. Because just based on what I've seen on paper, the 3 guys above him, besides maybe Bijan, just because he did have a great game last week, it's probably a little bit of recency bias. I need to see him keep doing it with Arthur Smith, because Arthur Smith is just a fucking terrible person. But Christian McCaffrey is definitely up there, just performing week in and week out like it's nobody's business.
Yeah.
And Jahmyr Gibbs starting to get there too. But I just want to see more out of Breece Hall, to be honest with you. I really do. I want to see the prospect match up with what happens on the field,
See, the thing with that is, I don't know that I fully agree. I think we have seen him produce in a bad situation. We have seen him reach his talent potential and like hit his ceiling, even in not the worst position or in not the best situation. It's just, it's not going to be consistent because of the environment around him.
That's fair.
Yeah. All right. That's going to be the last one for me. Do you have another one?
I had one person just to have a little discussion about. Someone that we were talking about a little bit this offseason as well. It's James Cook. Where he's ranked, I feel like he's adequately ranked. You know what I mean? Like, I wouldn't move him around anywhere in here. But I do feel like he is kind of a buy, just a little bit. He has been performing, decently well before, like, the last couple of weeks. You know what I mean? I feel like he's kind of tailed off recently. Let me check and make sure if I don't want to just keep, just conjecture. But I'm pretty sure he's been a little bit of a dip lately. But they have a favorable schedule coming up. And just going forward, I feel like James Cook is going to be pretty decent. But what is it? What are we looking at so far?
The full season points per game, he is the RB 25 at 11.4. But let me pull up his game by game. No, as of late, he's actually been decent.
He's been good as of late.
His last 3 games, 11, 18, and 13 in half PPR in his past 3 games. It's tough. He's another one where I don't know how to feel about him. Different than Rachaad White a little bit. In that I think, he has shown some efficiency when given the opportunity, and obviously the team environment around him is a lot better. But man, I think you're right in that he's probably ranked in a decent position. I have no idea if I'm buying or selling. I think he's probably a hold. I don't know. That's a toughie.
Yeah, because he's in a weird spot because he has like some draft capital. I wouldn't say he has a name because James Cook, Dalvin Cook, whatever. But I do feel like he's ranked in a weird spot, but I wouldn't move it because like I like him better than like a Rachaad White. But Rachaad White is ranked several spots above him right here on this list right here. You know what I mean? So I don't know if I value him higher than any of the guys above him. But I do feel like there's a conversation for having a James Cook on your team going forward. But like you said, I just really don't know about the Bills. I just wanted to have the discussion to see what you thought about James Cook, to see if you had any insight. And I see you're just as confused as I am.
Yeah. No, he's a big toss-up, big coin flip for me as well. But honestly, I feel like you could say that about so much of the running back position
Hmm.
in Dynasty, especially ranking these guys really from like I don't know RB8, RB10 to be conservative through RB30. Like it's a crapshoot. There's no certainty with any of these guys. The lifespan on the running back is so short. It's really hard to find a true value for any of these guys, which is kind of why I tried to focus on like the top end or the really cheap guys because there's slightly more certainty up here, and then you could take advantage of the uncertainty at the lower end of the spectrum. But yeah, trying to figure out the middling running backs is just a really difficult task to do.
Yeah, it's tough to separate them for sure. But I mean, that's everybody I've got on my side of the list on my end of things to wrap things up, I guess.
Yeah, that'll do it for me as well. So I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you guys learned something. And like I said in the middle of the video there, please do leave us comments if you have any specific trade questions that you want to talk about, proposals that you've gotten, requests that you're thinking about sending out to people. Let us know. We can help you out and walk you through some of those trade talks. And also let us know if you agree, disagree with any of the names on this list, as always, and all that good YouTube stuff that we talked about at the top. Leave a like on the video if you enjoyed, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell to stay up to date with all of our latest videos. That's all I got for the people. Will, do you have anything to say before we head out?
Yeah, make sure you guys check out those links down in the description below as well to our sponsors over at Dynasty Owner and over at Do Numbers. Go get you some cool merch, hoodies, shirts, stuff like that. And also make sure you check out the link to our Discord below. A lot of people have been joining lately. We got a good community going over there, so make sure you join up. We got a lot of people talking fantasy, dynasty, redraft, all sorts of stuff, even just regular everyday stuff too. So join up, have some fun, and yeah, honestly be a part of the community. But with that being said, if you guys made it this far into the video, as always, we love you, and we'll catch you in the next one. Peace.
Peace.